Okay, well, thank you so much for being here today, Rala. I'm really excited to speak to you. I know we've been talking back and forth for a little while now, about getting you on the show, and thank you for sharing with me, even before this, some of the things that you've heard from job seekers that you've worked with in the past. It's amazing to hear how many lives you've been able to change, and I'm excited to hear some of your tips and tricks today. I think we can help many more people watching this show. But I always like to start just by giving people a chance to get to know you a little better. So, would you mind telling us a little bit about your career journey to start with and what you've done along the way to get to where you are today?
Yeah, good morning, Imran. Thank you so much for the invite, and it's my pleasure to share my own experience and my own story. It started 26 years ago when I landed in Canada. I struggled like everyone else. There was not much programs such as these ones now, so I had to find out my own way, and I struggled a lot. And each time I was applying for jobs, they were telling me, you don't have the Canadian experience. And I say, if you don't give me that first chance, how am I gonna be able to get my first Canadian experience? And unfortunately, nobody was able to help. Because I speak French, I was able to find a job, but not within my field of expertise. So I took that job because I thought that this will accumulate like the Canadian experience for me. But
Hmm.
unfortunately, I found out later on when I was still applying for jobs, because I took that job just to gain the experience. And then to find out, no, that they needed Canadian experience in the field that I'm applying for, you
I
know.
see.
So I said, oh my God, I spent 2 years gaining Canadian experience, and it did not count, although I was working in a bank. Just because I speak French, it helped me um, get enrolled there without Canadian experience,
See.
So because they needed the French language at that time, there was not much English speakers, oh, sorry, French speakers in Ontario. So this is why I had that chance in the bank. But this was not my field of expertise. This is why I continued to apply for jobs and I couldn't find. And I refuse to fail, and I'm determined person. So I tried to find everything. Then I decided I'm gonna take training and understand what the market needs. Because before coming to Canada, people like employers were really offering me great positions and salaries, and here all of a sudden nobody wants me. So I refused to be in that situation, and this is why I needed to understand what the market needs, because I changed my resume 50 times, and each time it was not good enough. So what the Canadian market needed exactly.
Yeah.
So finally, I took 3 years course, and some of the courses did not make sense because they were not tailored towards the newcomers. They were tailored for Canadians with Canadian experience or Canadian education. So with all that, I found out that some people did not make their own research to find out, as an immigrant, what is needed exactly. So after 3 years, I worked in HR in two big places that most of the people know them, very reputable places,
Okay.
among them Home Depot, and I worked in the HR department. So here I am. I took the course, I struggled, and then I worked with HR. So now I had a good exposure of how the market works here in Canada.
Yeah.
Then I was offered a job by pure coincidence. I was offered a job in a nonprofit organization here in Ontario. I started in settlement, and in settlement, I was supposed to be focusing just on settlement, and I was able to help people with their employment issues. So all of a sudden, a lot of people started coming or guiding each other, and they ended up by coming to me. And so we reached a point where if somebody wanted to see me or to take an appointment, they had to wait 3 months
Wow.
because I was back to back like my time was fully booked. And then the organization for 10 years were trying to get funding for workshops for employment. And the executive director, she decided, what is she doing in settlement? She's great in employment. So this is how I shifted to employment. And I was leading the employment department, and we were able to get more funding, and we started workshops. So I started workshops almost like 16 years ago, and they were very successful. I had like really, literally, we can accommodate only 15 people. I had 28 people in the class, some of them standing, some of them sitting on the floor, refusing not to attend this workshop, you know.
Wow.
So it was really very exciting and very challenging, but at the same time rewarding, when you see a smile on people's face. So I treat each client like if it was me. When I first came here, I did not want them to struggle the way I struggled. So then this is how it started for me. And I learned, it's not only I was teaching them, but I learned also, ways of resolving any challenge, you know, to an extent where now I can say everybody can find a job except doctors, pharmacists, and uh, vets, and also lawyers. These are the only four that they cannot find a job, because it's the government who is holding it, and so you have to go through all the process in the medical field. But still there is an alternative for them. It doesn't mean that they cannot find a job, but it's not as a doctor. But there are other ways that they can find a job. And I need to meet with the client and see what are their transferable skills.
Wow, that's an incredible journey, Rala. And it's always interesting when people have gone from one thing to another, trying to figure out where they can offer the most value. And I'm glad that someone recognized, you have this ability to help people find the type of work that they're interested in. Especially hearing that, you started running these workshops at a time where people were looking for that kind of support, and it might not have existed. So what were some of the most common questions people asked you in those workshops? What were they hoping to get out of those sessions?
Well, the most important thing for them is, like, first of all, to understand what's their barrier, how to resolve it, and how to find a job. And I can tell you, Imran, easily that those who applies the tools and techniques that they learn in the workshop, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of preparation. But again, if they invest their efforts and time, to apply the tools and techniques within a very short time, I can say within 3 months, less than 3 months, they will find jobs. Some of them,
Oh,
before even the workshops ends, they start getting interviews, and some of them they start getting uh, offers even before the end of the workshop. You know,
and how long are the workshops? Like how is that structured when you started doing that?
when I started, it was 1 week workshop.
I see.
And then it depends on the program. Then when the program changed, it was 2 weeks. And now like it's 4 weeks. But I think if someone it all depends on the person, how much they want to make the effort, put the effort, and do the assignments that I give them, or all the preparation that they need to do. It all depends, on the client himself. Some people are um, they need more to be encouraged and empowered. So it will take a little bit longer, but usually within a week a person will be able to be ready if they are making the efforts.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. And it's like anything, it really does depend on the person, their unique circumstances, the approach they're taking. Um, what I'm wondering is, how would you run those workshops differently now than when you started? Because kind of like you're saying, it takes a lot of research to understand the labor market. And you actually got involved, you started working, trying to figure out, what it was that you could again contribute to. But that's changed, so much over the past few years, and it feels like it's accelerating. So if you were, running those workshops again today, would you do anything differently, or would you focus on anything differently than you did when you first started running them?
I've been in the sector for 16 years. And for 16 years, I am also learning from the clients. How did the client, for example, engineers, I thought engineers cannot work as engineers here in Canada. They have to do the test, they have to go under, not training, but they have to work for 1 year, I think, until they are able to work as an engineer. So I was able to learn from them, and then I found out how others they made it, and then I was able to guide the rest of the engineers. So it's a process. Like all the time I learned from the clients, um, as much as, no, not as much, but they learn from me and I learn from them too.
Yeah.
So again, uh, the, I always develop, I always try to uh, find the market changes, because when the market change, I need to work also on changing things, adding matters, or adding solutions to my clients, and to make their life easy. I don't tell them you need to change your resume towards towards a template, but I really formulated all the materials myself to make them winning candidates. So whether the resume, I created my own resume, a template for them, that I know that it kind of shows their strength, you know, and the same thing for the interview questions. There are thousands of interview questions. So instead of like, because it's overwhelming them, and it could they could panic during an interview. So
Yes.
I see, as an HR, what are the most important part, and I say, if you prepare those 6 questions very well, any other question that they might ask you, because there is no way on earth that you're gonna sit and memorize thousands and thousands of questions. So
Right.
what are the most important questions for an interviewer? If they are well prepared, then at least they have 70% chance of being selected.
Okay, that's really helpful to know. And I think encouraging for, again, job seekers watching this, you don't have to feel like you have to come up with answers for 1,000 different questions, right? That is extremely daunting. It's learning these strategies that you're talking about, Rala, so that, no matter what kind of question you get asked, you kind of know how to approach it. So that makes a lot of sense. And it kind of leads me into the next question I was wondering, which is, do any stories come to mind for you over the years as you've run these workshops of someone who was able to successfully use one of your strategies, or is there someone who went on to get a job um, doing some of the things that they learned in your workshop that you can tell us about?
Imran, I have thousands and thousands of success stories, of beautiful stories. And I can tell you, I turned that life, upside down, or da- uh,
Yeah, they were
downside
upside
up,
down. Now they're upside up. Yeah.
yeah. So it really made it, I really changed people's life, and I am so happy each time a client finds a job. It's like me finding a job. I have thousands and thousands of stories, and I have a lot of strategies. What I needed myself at that time, now I'm using it with my clients, and this is why my workshops are so successful, and people who are following, not people who are watching, but who are really implementing all the things that they learn, then they are successful. I have thousands of people who started, as for example, um, a coordinator or a customer service representative, and
Okay.
now they are executive directors within very short time, within like either few months or even a year, you know. Yeah, I cannot tell you how many stories I have. Like for example, I have a client who came for me, and he said, I have a PhD. He was crying. He was literally crying. And he said, I have a PhD and I'm working in a factory. And for the past 8 months, I'm so miserable. I don't have enough money to bring my wife and child from China, you know. And he said, I heard about you and I'm going to apply everything you tell me.
Oh,
At that time it was like a 2 weeks workshop, and he really was very attentive. He applied everything, he made all the efforts, although he was working, but he was still attending my workshop. Okay, so this is how determined he was, and this is how he knew that he's gonna make it. And he finished the workshop. I was very impressed. He's one of the thousands of people that I'm impressed with. After 2 weeks, I was walking in Mississauga, and I see this gentleman running towards me and hugging me and saying, I got a job as a professor in Centennial College
wow.
in 2 weeks' time. And I have thousands of stories. It will take me weeks and weeks to tell you all the success stories that I have. And the best part of it, like some of those clients, they became employers, and they tell me about job openings in their own company.
That's amazing, Rala. And I believe it. I remember you sending me some of the testimonials that your clients have shared with you over the years. And this is such important work. So thank you for doing what you do, Rala. And those kind of stories I think are uplifting for people to hear, especially because um, they're not, they're not one-offs. I think a lot of people come here with a ton of experience, so much to offer, and go through what you did, right? That initial period of trying to figure out how to show people you have all this potential and all this skill. But it sometimes it does take guidance to know how to do that. So, um, that's kind of the next thing I'm wondering for people watching this who are excited about the work you're doing. How can they get in touch with you? Is it okay if people reach out to you on LinkedIn, or what do you prefer?
They can check me out on LinkedIn. They can read the recommendation. They can read what other clients they would say about my workshop
Hmm.
or about my trainings. And I can give you my email address so they can send me an email, and they can get in touch with me. Again, I don't do miracles. If they don't, I do 60% of the work, but they need to make the efforts, because I'm not going to be the one who's going to go for an interview and answer. So they really need to prepare. I really help them to prepare for the workshop. I help them with their resume. I help them to identify their roadblocks and how to remove them. Like one, I have a story of that I need to tell. I have so many stories, but now it happened. Someone who just arrived in the country, and she heard about the workshop he attended, and before the workshop, and he received two offers as a professor in a college.
Oh,
Two
wow.
offers. Another client, he was here for 1 year, and for 1 year he was applying for jobs. He speaks fluent English and French, and he was not able to get any interview within his field of expertise. It was all labor jobs. And
Hmm.
then when he attended the workshop, he applied all the tools and techniques that I taught him. And within the first 2 weeks after the workshop, he received 30 interviews, 30.
Oh my goodness, Rala.
Okay.
That's amazing.
Another story, a lady who was willing to, she has two master's degree. She was willing, because for 2 years she couldn't find a job. She was willing to work, to go and clean houses with two master's degree, you know. And when I spoke to her, she was really down, and I motivated her to attend. And even before she attended the workshop, she got two different jobs within her desired field. So again, I can tell you stories and stories of
Yeah, that's very uplifting to hear. And everyone has a different goal. Some people, they enjoy manual labor, like we've spoken about. Some people are looking for uh a role cleaning houses, but other people are looking for, work they did previously before they moved to Canada. And I think it's like what you're saying. It's about figuring out what your goals are and working towards that, whatever those might be. But you mentioned something that maybe I'll ask. I know we are running out of time here, but that you try to help people identify the roadblocks that they have. Um, after helping so many people, did you see any patterns? Do you see a common roadblock that people watching this episode, might also be facing? Is there something you've seen that we could talk about today that maybe someone could start working on?
There are plenty in a resume. Your first door that you need to open is the resume. And
Okay.
so the resume, there are plenty of things that they need to be changed in a resume. For example, about skills, about verbs, about sentences. All this I help them, and I help them, like even people who do not speak fluent English. You know, I tell them how they can improve on their English. Or how they can express something without having mistakes in them. So I have an answer for all these challenges that some people face. It all depends. So I have now answered, after 16 years, I have answered to everyone what are their challenges and how they can remove them. So and again, what I wanted to say is, like, I really do hope that people um, do not give up. There is a way, but you need someone to tell you about the way, someone to assess you and see what are your roadblocks and then help you out. And who is best than somebody who had gone through that road and suffered that way, who can sympathize with you and who can understand what you're going through. So this is what I can say. And again, you said how they can get in touch with me. They can get in touch with me through LinkedIn. My name is Rala Bekdach, or they can go to my email address, which is careerbyrala@gmail.com. So it's careerbyRala@gmail.com.
Well, thank you so much, Rala, and thank you for your time today. Um, it's always exciting to hear insights from someone who has been there before, someone who has, in this case, been a newcomer and gone through the challenges firsthand. I think it's again just encouraging for people to hear who are at the start of that journey because it's like you said, there is a way, and everyone's way is a little different, but there is so much to learn from people who have been there before. So, thank you for sharing your stories today and for making time to speak with me. I really appreciate it. And are there any final thoughts you would like to leave with people who might be watching this episode?
Yeah, I always tell people, do not lose hope. uh, you can do it, but you just need to learn how. It's and again, when people they find jobs within their desired field, I am as happy as they are. It's like me. I don't know why, but it's like me finding a job. So and plus, it's always good to find people who are working within their desired field, because we have less depressed people in Canada you
Yes.
know and again, if someone is doing a work that they are not enjoying, it's a poison in them. Not only it's poisoning them, but it's poisoning their family and their whole environment. This is why I say, do not always work in a job that you enjoy doing.
So, so true. So important to find those things that keep you excited and motivated. And you can tell when people are doing the kind of job that they enjoy because it spreads, and it can just be someone walking into a store and they greet you, with excitement. That's someone who is excited to be where they are. And suddenly you feel a little more excited just being around them. So I couldn't agree with that more, Rala. I hope more people find work that gets them excited, and I encourage them to reach out to people like you who can help them get there. So thank you again for your time today, and I hope we get to talk again soon.
Sure. Thank you so much, Imran, for this opportunity to be able to speak to people and tell them, do not lose hope. There is a way.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Imran.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your week, Rala, and I will talk to you again soon.